Ladies and gentlemen, there are two kinds of stories. Those you can take to bed with you and then there's the other kind. Now our story tonight is the other kind.
Hey, how's it going? Jacob Palacio here. We have finally arrived to the fifth and final film in this Sundance Movie review series thing, and this is the last one. This is it. After this, there's no more. It's done. It's gone. This is all I saw, so that's it. This is it. The last film I saw at Sundance 2022 is a little film called Something in the Dirt. It is directed by Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead, or vice versa. I don't think that matters, you know, the order of the names. Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead have been making movies for quite a while now. Their first film, titled Resolution, debuted in 2012, followed by Spring, which came out in 2014, and then after that it was The Endless, which I think came out in 2017, and then after that it was Synchronic, which came out in 2019, and then finally their fifth and newest film, called Something in the Dirt, came out this year, or it premiered at Sundance this year, at least. I don't know when it's coming out. So yeah, this is the fifth Sundance review of this year, and it's also the fifth film that they, you know, directed, so what a coincidence. What are the odds? Now, I'm a big fan of these guys. I've been following them ever since their first film came out, Resolution. I think on the Sci-Fi channel is when I watched it, or something, or it was that, or like Chiller or FearNet, one of those channels was showing it, I don't remember. And then I watched Spring, and I remember thinking to myself, like, wow, that was a great movie, and I still think to this day that it is their best film thus far. And I was also a really big fan of The Endless, and Synchronic also was a lot of fun as well. These guys haven't really made a bad film yet. You know, everything that they've put out is consistently good. All of their films kind of teeter back and forth between like horror and sci-fi. One thing that all of their films do have in common is that they all deal with like these mind-bending elements and themes having to do with like science and physics and time. The concept of time is a reoccurring theme in all of their films, except for this new one. Something in the Dirt is the very first film that they have directed that does not explicitly have to do with time, or, you know, time being altered in some way. This movie was also made during quarantine, so of course, you know, it's a very limited, very small crew that worked on this film. Apparently there were only 3 people that actually worked on set on this film, those 3 people being Aaron Moorhead, Justin Benson, and producer David Lawson Jr. behind the camera. I also forgot to mention this, but Aaron Moorhead and Justin Benson also star in this film. They're both the 2 lead actors, and they're pretty much the only 2 people that we are following, you know, in this movie as far as the narrative goes. The film follows 2 guys named John and Levy. They are both neighbors, and they are meeting for the very first time because Levy is a dude who is just moving into this apartment that John is also living in. And upon first meeting, the 2 really hit it off. You know, they seem like they could be really good buddies. They seem to have a good amount in common, and, you know, they can both carry a conversation pretty well. But then shit gets fucking weird, man. It gets so weird. And then all of a sudden, all of these strange occurrences start happening in the movie, such as they start to weigh less in the apartment, and also the number 1908 is a subliminal number that pops out all throughout the movie, and there's also this chipmunk called Hungry Dave who keeps appearing in the movie for some reason. And the 2 dudes decide to film everything, and they start to capture some really weird shit, and then throughout the movie they start spewing out all these different conspiracy theories, you know, regarding this phenomenon that they are experiencing. And they start opening up all these rabbit holes that makes everything even more convoluted and even more mind-bending. For a post-COVID movie that was made during quarantine, it wasn't as grueling as I thought it would be. You know, when you hear that a movie was made during quarantine, it's a little concerning because you know that the resources that are available to them is very limited. For example, you know, a very small crew. They're also probably limited to like the amount of places that they can go, and it seems like they just don't have the same amount of creative freedom that they normally would if they were to make a movie, you know, not in the pandemic. But I was engaged pretty much throughout the entire thing, and they did a pretty good fucking job, you know, considering their limited resources. This actually isn't the first time that these 2 have done a chamber piece. Their first film, Resolution, is essentially just a movie about 2 guys sitting in a cabin talking. so it didn't really seem like the best idea for them to make, you know, a movie about two guys sitting in an apartment talking, since they kind of already did that. But the two movies are still very different thematically, but this is definitely the most low-key movie that they have made, probably since their debut film, so just keep that in mind when going into this. But the large and grand and out there ideas are still very much present in this movie. A lot of people are comparing this movie to Primer and Under the Silver Lake, and yeah, I can definitely totally understand both of those comparisons. It is a lot like Under the Silver Lake in the sense that it's mostly just following these two guys who are both kind of like slackers, and they all of a sudden stumble upon this weird phenomenon that, you know, only starts becoming more and more convoluted as the movie goes on, and it's only asking more questions instead of answering them. So it's very much similar to Under the Silver Lake in that regards, and it's also very much like Primer in the sense that I honestly didn't know what the fuck was going on in this movie half the time, but you know, I was still very much intrigued by it, and a lot of that is mostly due to the two directors' main performances and these very interesting ideas that are constantly being thrown at you all throughout the movie. I would also like to point out that this is not a horror movie by any means. I actually did not notice any horror elements at all. If there were two genres to define this, I would say probably sci-fi and maybe even thriller, but this is definitely not a horror movie. There are some moments in this movie of comic relief that did fall a little bit flat for me, and also the sound design wasn't the best, but I'm willing to let this one slide, you know, considering the circumstances that they are in, but the sound design was a little iffy. I do really like the two main characters, John and Lovey, a lot. I think they have a really great dynamic, and they end up being really likable guys by the end of the movie. And as much as these two characters get along in the movie, you can definitely tell that there's still a lot of underlying tension and mistrust between the two of them. So you never really know what's going to end up happening in the movie, which is kind of cool. The movie is also a mockumentary of sorts, since there's all these random, you know, interviews that are, you know, implemented into the movie of these people, you know, that are being interviewed for the documentary that the two characters are making for the movie in the movie. So you have the main narrative with the two guys, and then all of a sudden you'll have random little scenes of, you know, people being interviewed for the movie that these two characters are making. Now, as mentioned, there's a lot of physics, a lot of science, and a lot of math that go into this movie. Once the film ended, I saw a Q&A that Sundance put together with Justin and Aaron, the directors, and they both basically said that a lot of the mathematics in this movie were completely fake. So if a mathematician were to watch this movie, then they'd probably get pretty irritated seeing that a lot of the math in the movie doesn't, you know, really add up or make sense. Get it? Add up? It's a fucking knee slapper, man. And yeah, Something in the Dirt. It's a very interesting movie. It's a movie where obsessions are affiliated upon, mysteries remain unsolved, or in some cases make even less sense. And yeah, if any of this sounds appealing to you at all, then I would recommend it. And if you are a fan of these two guys, then I would also recommend checking this out, as this is a pretty good film by them still. These guys are 5 for 5 right now. They have yet to make a bad film, and I really hope they don't, because I really enjoy these guys' films, and I really appreciate this guerrilla style, you know, DIY approach to filmmaking. And it just goes to show that you can still make a movie with all these great and ambitious ideas, you know, with a very low budget, if you use the resources that you have to their best advantage. This is definitely an inspiring movie in that way. And yeah, overall, rating this movie is a bit hard. I'm jumping back and forth between some numbers here, but I think overall I'm going to give Something in the Dirt a 7 out of 10. This is not a perfect movie, but it is a very good movie, and this is not the best film that they have done, but it's still a very good film from them. So yeah, this is staying at a 7 for now, but there's definitely a possibility that my rating could go up higher, you know, if I sit on it for a bit longer, or if I watch it a few more times, or maybe it could go even lower. You know, who knows? Anything could happen. I don't know. But yeah, that's Something in the Dirt, and that's also the last film that I saw at Sundance of this year, 2022. I had a lot of fun making these videos, and I hope you guys had a lot of fun watching them. And yeah, that's really it. So yeah, overall, pretty good year for Sundance. I enjoyed a good majority of the movies that I saw quite a bit. So yeah, woo. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please stay tuned for more videos coming soon in the very near future, and I will see you guys later.